So I have the Raspberry Pi 4 on this side and the brand new Raspberry Pi 5 over here on this side, and I'm going to be comparing both of them. There are quite a few differences that you should know about. For starters, you can see that the Ethernet connector on the Pi 5 is way over here. Meanwhile, the Pi 4, it's over here. So the Pi 5 has the same layout for the USB ports and the Ethernet connector as the Pi 3, which is very different than the Pi 4. And because of that reason, you can see that the PoE post, how the PoE, the Ethernet jack is able to supply electricity to the PoE hat, is right behind the Ethernet jack. And here in the Pi 5, it's no different. It's also right behind the Ethernet jack, but that means that the PoE hat for the Pi 4 will not be compatible with the PoE hat for the Pi 5, so you're going to need a new PoE hat. Another thing that you're going to notice is that on the Pi 4, the camera and the display connectors are separate. On the Pi 5, they're right here alongside each other, and these are actually camera / display connectors, so you can plug in either a camera or a display. On the Pi 4, that was the camera connector, this was the display connector. You can run either one camera, two cameras, or one camera and one display, or two displays, and before, you couldn't do that. On the Pi 5, where the display connector used to be, now there is a PCIe connector. So this connector is using the 5 volts from the GPIO pins. So, if you have a lot of devices connected, you have to be careful because it's probably not going to be able to supply enough current if you have a lot of devices plugged in. The PCIe connector can be used for connecting an SSD or say like a GSM module. Another thing that you're going to notice is that the audio jack is no more. There's no audio jack on the Pi 5. The audio jack has been there since the Pi 1, but for some reason they decided to not include that on the Pi 5. You still have Bluetooth that you can connect to your devices that way. If you're using a Bluetooth speaker or a Bluetooth sound system, of course you can still do that. That's no different than the Pi 4. So all these differences that we just talked about means that the cases for the Pi 4 and the Pi 5 are not compatible. You're going to need new cases. The HDMI connectors are still in the same spot. The USB-C power connector, they're still in the same spot, but because all the other connectors are in different spots, you most likely will need a new case, especially because of the missing audio jack and the Ethernet ports. They're on opposite sides. There are quite a few new connectors on the Pi 5. There is a fan connector. I'm going to be showing you the fan installed on the Pi 5. It's a heatsink with an active cooling and a fan on it. And yeah, it runs pretty well. There's also a serial connector and a battery connector for the real-time clock. So when the board is powered down, you can still have your real-time clock battery connected, keeping track of time. There is also a power button. Yes, amazing. People have been asking for a power button for quite a while, and now they included a power button. When you plug in the power, the board boots up right away, but if you shut it down without unplugging the power, you can go ahead and push that tiny little button there and the board powers up again. I tried powering down using the button. That did not work. I'm not sure if that's going to be supported in the future. I'll try it again. Maybe I have to press a little longer, but yeah, for powering up the board, that is the power button right there. One thing that I have not talked about is the new chip. So this is a silicon designed by Raspberry Pi themselves. We don't have the Broadcom CPU chip anymore. There's still the Broadcom GPU, but the CPU is a Raspberry Pi Silicon chip. That's pretty cool. That is the first single board computer with a chip designed by Raspberry Pi themselves. Of course, there's the Pi Pico. They have the chip, but that's a microcontroller, not a single board computer. A lot of the same layout is still on the board. You still have the GPIO connectors. They look to be exactly the same spot. The antenna is still there. They're right next to the Wi-Fi module, so that's good to see. And yeah, those are the main differences. Right now, the Raspberry Pi 5 is being released with the 8GB and the 4GB models. The Raspberry Pi 4, you could get 1, 2, 4, and 8GB. Right now, there's only a 4 and 8GB, which I think is fair. If you want a lower gigabyte, lower RAM board, you can still go for the Raspberry Pi 4. They're not stopping. They're still making the Pi 4, so I think that's compatible with a lot of the new SBCs coming out from other makers, other manufacturers. They're mostly 4, 8, and sometimes 16GB. So those are the main differences. Let's get it powered up. I'm going to install the heatsink with the active cooling, the fan on it, and we're going to see how it runs. So this is the new heatsink that they're releasing with the Raspberry Pi 5. You can see there's a fan on it, so it's a active cooling. It has a couple posts. You just press down on the post and they go inside the holes for the posts on the Pi 5. I haven't installed mine yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it right now. Looks like lining up is not too bad. And listening for the click. One already clicked. The second one clicked. So, and the connector, the battery connector goes right here. Let me see, make sure it's going in the correct way. And yep, it did. Pretty nifty to see this kind of heatsink from Raspberry Pi. They had a fan that you could put it on a case, but they never had an actual heatsink for the previous Raspberry Pi models. I can see that there's still room for the camera and display cables, so that's good to see. It's not blocking the PCIe connector either. That would be pretty bad if the heatsink was blocking that. And it looks like it's just a pretty small fan. It might be a little bit loud. I'll be testing it out, see if it's quiet or if it makes a lot of noise. So I also have the new power source for the Raspberry Pi 5. It's a much beefier power source, and you can see compared to the Pi 4, just the in size, you know, it's a different beast. And it looks like it's PD USB-C power source because it has a different voltages listed on here. Previously the Pi 4 was just 5 volts, 3 amps, and it looks like this one is 27 watts, so it's 5 volts and 5 amps, so that's pretty good. And like I said, it has the different voltages, so it looks to be PD enabled. Alright, so we have moved over to the workbench. I'm going to power it on to see how that little fan works, and might as well use the power button, so let's give it a shot. One push and it's powering it up. You can see the green activity light going on. The fan is spinning full blast right now. Okay, so we're booted up. I'm in Debian Bookworm, so that's the version they're shipping with the Pi 5, the newest version of Debian. I'm just on the desktop, and the fan is not spinning at all, so that's good to see. Let's open up some programs and see if we can get the fan to spin. Let's go to KiCad. So this is a PCB, a program for making PCBs. It's pretty graphic intensive. We'll see if we'll get the fan to spin up. Not sure why it's giving me that warning. Definitely no one else editing this file right now. It's one of the PCBs that I'm designing and testing right now. Okay, so yeah, we're in the KiCad, and the fan is spinning, but not too bad. I can't really hear it. It's really quiet right now. Let's see if we can do something else to this board to get the fan to spin a little faster, see how loud it is. So let's go to YouTube. EPSP, let's find his 4K videos. There's no license, so I can play this video. Yep, there you go. The fan is still spinning, and I can't really hear it. So that's good. Let's load up Stats for Nerds. A few frames being dropped, not too bad. It's still running pretty smooth. We are on 1080p. Alright, yeah, and the fan is pretty quiet, so I'm pretty happy with the fan performance right now. I'm sure this is warming up the board quite a bit with the graphics card and the CPU running right now. Yeah, I can hear the fan a little bit now, not quite. I had to stop for a second and check if that was actually the fan that was making that noise, but I can hear it now. It's barely noticeable though. Alright. And desktop seems really good. Very snappy, everything is working really well. You just saw me in Chromium web browser, and I also opened KiCad, opened up pretty quickly. I use KiCad on my Pi 4 also, and it's definitely a lot slower than that. The graphics are a lot slower to load, so pretty good user experience so far. And like I mentioned, Raspberry Pi saying that the Pi 5 is 2 to 3 times faster than the Pi 4, so we should see a pretty big boost in performance here. Alright, I think that'll do it for this video. I'll have more Pi 5 content coming up. I'll be testing some things, including some of my projects, see how it works. I'm really curious about the dual connectors for cameras. See if I can run 2 cameras at the same time. So I'll be making a video on that pretty shortly. Alright, yep, talk to you guys later.